it's okay to be a woman. A woman is just like a human. I don't blame them. I don't blame any Afghan woman who accepted to be the victims of society's expectation. Hi, Fatima, everybody else left. We cannot protect you anymore. You have to leave because Taliban got our Kabul. I saw that like there are gunshots, people running, each one faster than each other. Like, how is Taliban going to kill me? Like, behead me directly, or do they do something else?
Hola a todos, os traemos un nuevo vídeo para el canal. En este caso se trata de una entrevista a una persona muy especial para nosotros y que nos ha costado mucho sacar adelante, puesto que no es nada fácil hablar de este tema sin que se te haga un nudo en el estómago o se te encoja el corazón.
Como muchos de vosotros sabéis, hace unos meses estuvimos recorriendo Afganistán, tratando de conocer más de cerca la situación política y social del país. Fue un viaje muy importante para nosotros, interesante y emotivo, y no nos dejó indiferentes.
Quizá con lo que más estamos sensibilizados es con la situación de la mujer afgana, puesto que tras la llegada de los talibanes han sufrido una inmensa y dura represión, anulando muchos de sus derechos. Estando en terreno, tuvimos contacto con varias mujeres locales, pero no muchas se atrevían a hablar de su situación abiertamente, es algo lógico. Y con algunas de ellas intercambiamos los teléfonos y a día de hoy mantenemos una colaboración económica abierta y activa.
En este caso, en lo que concierne al vídeo de hoy, nos pusimos en contacto con Fatima Haidari, primera mujer afgana que trabajó de guía turística en aquel país. Ahora está refugiada desde hace 3 años en Italia. Ella ha querido compartir con nosotros su experiencia personal, su huida de Kabul tras la llegada de los talibanes y su opinión sobre la situación en Afganistán.
My name is Fatima. I come from Afghanistan. It's since I think 3 years that I'm living in Italy. When I was I think 7 years old, and I was a shepherd. And then I did basically my very basic education secretly because at the moment only boys had the privilege to study and girls not. So I started somehow being curious, going around. The teacher who was teaching the boys next to a river, and I was listening to them secretly. I understood well that education was the only thing I could use as a weapon to fight with the society expectations that were like supposed to decide my life, and I didn't want that. So I did some handicrafts with the money. I could buy some books and notebooks, and then thanks to my mom who was helping me, I continued my education at home, and then I graduated high school alongside with teaching those refugee girls the basic classes of English, and then I was supposed to go to university because I really wanted to go. According to my family, that was enough because I knew how to read, how to write, how to find my way, and that was it. But now I had like a bigger vision of life. I had bigger dreams, and I wanted more somehow. I wanted to achieve more, and I wanted more change in my life, not only in my own life, but also in lives of so many other people around me. And then I convinced them somehow, and I started university in the field of journalism and mass communication.
Y Fátima se convirtió en la primera guía mujer de Afganistán.
I also started my job as a tour guide, and I think it was in 2020 that I don't know, CNN contacted me somehow that I was the first female tour guide of Afghanistan who was working independently, and then somehow that changed a lot more my life because a lot of people from all over the world were contacting me and giving me the messages of support, courage, and love. And somehow I felt like now I'm not alone. The enjoyable part, because I was meeting like very new people coming from all around the world. I was positively sharing about my culture, about my country from perspective of a woman to the world, but also learning like from them. So it was an exchange of knowledge, but also an exchange of, I made a lot of friends through that job. The hardest part was when I had to face the society because according to so many of them, mainly men, that was something, you know, unexpected. And before Taliban, even in most of the cities, women couldn't work in an office that there were only men and one woman. So for me, I had to work, for example, with a lot of foreigner men, which was worse for them. And according to them, I was misleading other women. I was spreading Western culture, and somehow they were asking me to repent, and never received like somehow a very positive message from them. Even the educated ones were telling me that it's dangerous for you. If you want to continue, you have to have a male partner who help you, who protect you, and things like that. And even like, you know, the company was always telling me that, okay, you know, be more careful, you know, wear clothes that do not attract a lot of attention. And it reached to a point when, for example, the Security Council in Herat warned the company that Fatima has to be very careful because somehow she's a target. And then whenever she has a guest, she has to put us in picture. She has to give the guests information to us so we have their back from far away. And I think, to me, sometimes I was very scared, and sometimes I thought of giving up. But I think thanks to that Fatima inside me, who was telling me, Fatima, what they want from you is just to be stronger. It means that you're not strong enough. So to everybody, I was just smiling and I was saying, okay, but at the end, I was doing my own job.
El recorrido de Fátima como guía no ha sido nada fácil, y esto se ha debido sencillamente al hecho de ser mujer, puesto que en Afganistán las mujeres no suelen ejercer ningún trabajo remunerado y mucho menos de manera independiente.
Por eso, precisamente, quisimos preguntarle por los problemas a los que se había enfrentado en su vida laboral como guía de viajes, y esta fue su respuesta.
Sometimes, for example, some historical places, we had to get a permit for guests to be able to meet there. But so many of the tour guides didn't need that permit because it was taking a lot of times. So they were paying a bit to the person who was as a guard in order to be able to go to visit there. But I knew that, for example, that guy was asking for more money from me than them. And for them, it was easier to convince him to allow the guests to go inside and to visit more parts of those historical places. But for me, they were saying always restrictions, saying that, okay, that part, it's prohibited to visit. But the interesting thing is, when I was with my boss, I mean the founder of the company, it was okay. It was okay. Like, they were very welcoming. But when I was alone, it was a bit harder. And another problem I had was I couldn't stay late at night. I couldn't take, for example, my guests in the restaurants in the evening, because that would have been very dangerous for me. I had to come home soon. My mom was so worried, and also my home was 2 hours away from the city center and where the guests were staying. So I had to come sooner, otherwise the way would have been very dangerous for me.
¿Qué significa tu madre para ti como referente femenino?
Sometimes, people ask me, who's, the role model in your life? Who's the hero in my life? I would say generally all Afghan women are my heroes, because I look at them and I decided what to do. I look at them and they taught me the lesson of not following the same path somehow, choosing a different path. And I think one of those heroes, I mean, maybe the biggest one, was my mom, who I think stood against everybody in order to, be able to support me. Maybe, my mom, she's uneducated. She's very religious, and she lives a very traditional way of life. But and she was always worried about me, because she knew I'm like a very outgoing person. I do whatever I want, and somehow it made her worries. There were days and evenings that she was waiting for me sitting in front of the door all day, because in a country like Afghanistan, sometimes for you to go out in the morning, you didn't expect to come back alive in the evening. So I think it was her right to be worried. And sometimes she asked me to not do what I wanted to do. But once she has seen that I really want to do that, she was the first person in the family to convince my father. I don't know, everybody else. I mean, she had to convince my father, but everybody else, she was saying, okay, she decided to do that. I support her, and that's it. I remember, for example, the first time I decided to post my own profile picture, my own face on Facebook. And after a while that my brother got internet, and we were all, I think, eating dinner, and he was there, I don't know, checking internet and things like that. And after a while, he was running so fast and like shouting, "Mom, mom," that we thought maybe like there is a thief, or I don't know, a robber, I don't know, following him. And then my mom, like, she was very worried. What happened? And he said, your daughter posted her own photo on Facebook. She's like too outgoing, mom. Everybody now can see her picture. I'm sure for my mom, or according to her education in her mind, that was not right. But my mom told him, okay, so what should I do? And she was very relaxed. And I was like very, very surprised that I never forget that scene. And later on, when I was alone with my mom, and my mom like asked me, girl, what are you doing? Like, why did you post your photo on Facebook? Like, everybody can see that. And then I explained, okay, mom, that's my identity. Nobody can use it, even if they use what they gain and things like that. And I convinced her. But for me, the fact that she didn't allow my brother to decide like what I can post or what I can do and I cannot do was the most important thing. And I think that was always, and I think she was my biggest supporter, biggest hero, and I'm forever thankful to her. To all my family, I don't blame them for everything that they didn't want me to do, because I don't blame them. I don't blame any Afghan woman who accepted to be the victims of society's expectation and what other decided for them, or any other family members. What I know is like that's the education in their mind. In those 20 years, we had to still fight the Taliban's mindsets, and that's what they think is true. And I think education is the only source, the only weapon that we can use to create more awareness among people, and to not only among men, to stop the playing the role of being superior to women, but also to make understand, to make aware or create awareness among women, to stop accepting the role of being victims, to go for their own choices. And I think education is the only thing that can bring change, and unfortunately that is taken from them.
Además de a tu madre, ¿tienes alguna otra mujer afgana como referente feminista?
About reference to other feminists, okay, let me tell you, the very first I even didn't know what's feminist. I mean, I came here and now I understand what's being a feminist, and I've never called myself a feminist. But if being feminist means to go for your own choices and to have or to support the choices of other women, I can say proudly that yes, I'm a feminist. I mean, it's good to sacrifice your life for being a mother or being a housewife, but it's also important what you want from life. What do you want for your own selves? And you shouldn't sacrifice that, because at the end, you're also human. If you cannot love yourself, if you can't achieve things for yourselves, you won't be even a good mother or good housewife, because you are living the expectation of others. You are not your own self. And to be a good housewife and a good mother, first you need to be yourselves, and to respect your own selves. And yes, I know a lot of other women like my own back in Afghanistan, but also the ones who got out of Afghanistan. For example, I knew a lot of women protesters who, protested after Taliban's takeover against the regime. Some of them sadly were saying that Taliban were, punishing them by forcing them to get married with them, or they were like giving electric shock on their private parts of body so that they cannot talk to the public what Taliban have done to them. And a lot of those women are still like in Taliban's presence. And I mean, who knows? Because in so many rural areas, nobody knows about them. Taliban forced a lot of, young women to get married with them to force them into marriages. And yeah, I know, for example, I knew three sisters who now they're in Germany, but they were part of the protesters. And once Taliban wanted to arrest them and went to their home, thankfully one of them like was courageous enough to start, posting a video showing that Taliban arrested them, and with the UN intervention, they were released. Now they're in Germany, and I know also a lot of my friends right now in Afghanistan. Somehow I know a lot of women are fighting like through, secret education and simply, defying Taliban by wearing their own clothes of choice, going out, and opt for online education and things like that.
La caída de Kabul. El 15 de agosto de 2021, los talibanes tomaron la ciudad de Kabul. Ante el miedo al futuro que les esperaba, muchas personas decidieron huir y abandonar el país. Algunos lo lograron subiendo a los aviones que diferentes gobiernos proporcionaron.
Es la estampa de la desesperación de buena parte del pueblo afgano. Cientos de personas corren en las pistas del aeropuerto de Kabul con la vaga esperanza de subir a bordo de un avión del ejército estadounidense que se dispone a despegar y marcharse muy lejos de un país a merced de los talibanes.
¿Dónde estabas tú en ese momento y cómo era la situación sobre el terreno?
Well, I was in Herat once Taliban started to capture Herat. And then everybody asked me to go, to leave the country before 15 August. Because, the first time I was supposed to have a guest, from Russia, and another one, from another country, which I was preparing, the itinerary and things like that. Then the day before that day, the company called me that, hi, Fatima, the tourism is canceled in Afghanistan. And I think that was the biggest shock. And oh my God, my job was taken away from me. But then I thought, okay, everything else would be okay. The universities would open. I'm able to continue with my university. But no, everybody told me that you have to leave. And then I left Herat to Kabul. I was waiting nearly, 3 weeks in Kabul, so that Taliban, the government take Herat back from Taliban and I can turn back. But no, they soon started capturing Kabul, and once they started capturing Kabul, so people were trying to help me to get out from Kabul, which the Spanish story. The situation on the ground, I think, sometimes it's very hard. It gives me a headache to talk about that, but I will say, because that's the reality I have to face. That's not something I can escape from. That day, I went in the morning. I went to get my visa for Pakistan, and I came back, and I came back to the dormitory. I saw the dormitory was very empty, because I was staying in this girls' dormitory. I saw it very empty, but then I started collecting my stuff so that I can go to the airport. But then the dormitory manager knocked the door. Hi, Fatima, everybody else left. We cannot protect you anymore. You have to leave because Taliban got our Kabul. From the morning, everybody was talking, for example, okay, Taliban have arrived here, but it was not in the city center. So I think that moment he said Taliban captured Kabul, I was like in a very, very big shock. I don't know. There is a word which is called stasis. Stasis is something that you like. I mean, you hang and you don't know what to do at the moment. And I think not your mind, not your heart, nothing worse. Just my heart was like beating so fast. I was so stressed. And then I got my suitcase and backpack and I came out. I saw that like there are gunshots, people running, each one faster than each other in order to reach the destination. And I was like a dead body who was moving on the streets among unknown people, but I didn't know where to go because my family was not there. And I was thinking for the first time that, like, how is Taliban going to kill me? Like, I don't know, like, which they, for example, behead me directly, or do they do something else? I don't know, that burqa, the long cheddar, or anything else. I don't know how. And the fact that I didn't say a proper goodbye to my family, I say goodbye to come to Kabul, but I never say goodbye that I would be killed, or I would be, I mean, so many things that I didn't do in my life, like didn't say, I don't know, I love you to my father. I didn't hug my family. I what about my nieces? And I don't see them grow up. And what about my, I don't know, because one of my dreams was that every generation who's girl and come after me, I never allowed them to be forced into marriage or to, not get an education. And I loved one of them more because she was living with us. I had a lot of dreams for her, and then I everything somehow seemed to, be shattered. And I was not supposed to see them again somehow. But somehow until the evening, I was running on the streets. But in the evening, my tour operator called, Fatima, did you make it to Pakistan? And I said, no, actually, I forgot to go to the airport because I'm a bit shocked. And then he said, no problem, you come to my house. And our friends in Italy are working to get you out of Afghanistan. And then I went to his house before before thinking of getting out. And I think 2 days later we had a flight to America with two other sport women from Bamiyan. We went there, but at the airport the situation was even a more disaster because Taliban were pushing back people, and nearly everybody wanted to leave the country. And the first time also, like, seeing Taliban with my own eyes, beating people, the gunshots, the ones who were like fainting because of not receiving oxygen in the crowd, the ones who were injured because of the air gunshots, and the whole amount of disappointment in people's eyes, and seeing people falling down from the airplane. And I think, to me, for example, that was not one person falling down from airplane. That, to me, that was like the country falling down. To me, that was my dreams falling down. To me, that was like everything I had was falling down. To me, like everything was falling down. And probably that was the hardest part. But it also made me understand one thing, that Afghanistan is not anymore a place for me to live, a place where I can dream anymore, a place where I can live and be happy and continue my fight against gender discrimination, because maybe I'm not that strong and I cannot be that person to live here. So it made me more determined to leave the country. And now I think I don't regret my decision. I love Afghanistan because I have been born there. I have fight there. I have fought there. I have a lot of people I know there, and I have a lot of dreams for Afghanistan, and especially women. But I'm sure if I'm here, I can help more than when I was in Afghanistan, or if I were in Afghanistan. And if one day the situation gets better, I will go back, and I will like implement all my plans, like opening schools for girls in the rural areas.
¿Cómo es la situación de la mujer en Afganistán tras la toma de poder de los talibanes?
The fact that women are going through hell, that's something very clear, I'm sure, even to the world. According to me, being a woman even before Taliban was not very easy for women in Afghanistan because as women, we had to fight, for our very fundamental rights for the 20 years of, democratic government, because according to me, before the democratic government and the Taliban, the situation of women, as I have studied, because I was not born, but it was very better, and women had what's rightfully was theirs. But after that, we had to fight. And me, for example, as the smallest sibling of 7 children, I am the only educated person in the family, and the fact that I was a woman, it made the fight harder for me. I had to fight with every aspect and expectations of the society that had from me as a woman. I mean, for me, I wanted to be the person that I chose to be, not the one that the society expected me. But to be that person, I had to go through so much. And it's not only my story, but I became very interested in women's issue when I was pretty much very small, like seeing the injustice and discriminative behavior of society against women. It made me realize that there is something not wrong about being a woman, but wrong about the way society is expecting women to behave in a certain way that they chose, not women themselves want that, like with my friends. But when I grow up a little bit, when I studied more, I became even more interested because I have been in an environment where a lot of women around me, have been abused sexually or had to submit themselves to their husbands or the man in the family, and they were deciding how that woman is going to live, and a lot of them have been tortured. But what was saddening for me, that a lot of those women have accepted that situation and that expectation, and they were thinking, okay, that's our right, that's what is right for us as women. We have to be, I don't know, pure, we have to be innocent, we have to I don't accept that. And I don't think it's their fault, but it's the society's mindset and education that made them like that. So for me, it was pretty much saddening, and that's why I started to, fight, not only for myself, but also girls, I don't know, friends around me and family members who were women. And I didn't succeed fully, but after Taliban, I even cannot imagine, because you have been in Afghanistan. Maybe you didn't see a lot of things. Maybe you didn't see how is the everyday life of a woman is going on. But I'm sure the general things, that once Taliban got over Afghanistan, the first thing they did was closing the doors of schools for girls, and then universities, and then job offices for women. After that, even they have taken the right to having a normal and a social life from them, not being able to move alone, not being able to go to park and enjoy, and so many other things. Some of my friends, they're saying that even the religious sites that we want to go to see and pray, because that's a part of their culture and their religion. They say that for us as women, it's restricted. We cannot go every time that we want, and we have to we have to go there first with a man, and most of the time they don't allow us. And I think that's somehow prisoning women alive in their homes and having basically no rights. I mean, imagine I know a lot of women in Afghanistan lost their men in the family due to several reasons, because of, the civil wars, I don't know, explosions that have happened, I don't know, target killings, or the ones who their husbands were soldiers and they lost their lives with Taliban themselves, and they don't have any man like in their family to work and to provide for them and for their children. So imagine if they don't have the right to go to work, who's going to provide for them? And they are going to die from starvation, or they have to do something else like selling their children, which happened a lot in Afghanistan. You know, there were this great bazaar of selling children, and the saddening thing is, if you decide to sell one of your children, the one who should be sold is the girl. And unfortunately, a lot of family like force their daughters into very, very early marriages. You know, to tell you a very sad story, I had every morning very early, since I love teaching, not just as a job, but something I really enjoyed, you know, to teach whatever I knew to others and to girls, especially because it was very close to my heart. I had this group of, 30 students that every early morning I was going to teach them. And two of them were like sisters aged 13 and 16. And one of them who like loved to be a tour guide like me, and the other one wanted to be a member of parliament. And right now, like both of them are forced into marriage and they even didn't turn 18. Like that's sad, because that's not only the story of two of my students, but that's the story of a lot of girls all around Afghanistan. And we even cannot imagine the mental health issues that women are going through, because I'm following some articles that reporting that, the suicide rate in Afghanistan is growing fast among women, or I don't know, like I'm sure every woman in Afghanistan suffers mentally because they have lost everything. You know, it's very sad for them to fight for their very basic rights that I think people, for example, or children in Europe are growing up with. And something that's ours, and we have to fight for that, and we have to prove ourselves every time. That's sad. And I don't know, it was somehow yesterday I have seen a post on Instagram that was saying you should be grateful. It was like calling men that you should be grateful that women are not asking for revenge, but they're asking for equality. In Afghanistan, actually, I don't know, it's just very, very disappointing situation. Sometimes I feel really guilty being out of Afghanistan, being here and not being there, but I cannot imagine myself being in Afghanistan doing nothing and accepting to lose everything.
¿Cómo son los talibanes y las personas que los apoyan?
Maybe there are people who are happy because they want the type of ideology that Taliban are implementing. But there are also people who are suffering, with their dreams and future are shattered. And even if schools and universities are open for men, but the ones who are graduated from those schools and universities would not be normal people, because Taliban try to change the curriculums and to have more of their propagandas and ideology into those school and university curriculums, so that they train people who will follow their way in the future, who will live according to their rules. And I think that's the reason they banned women's schools, because they know that women are the leaders of the family, and an educated, peace-loving and freedom-loving mother will never allow her children to follow that ideology and that propaganda. So they restrict their education in order to be able to control men's mindset in a better way. And I'm afraid we arrive, or we in a point of time where women in Afghanistan accept that being tortured and whatever is happening to them is right, and they opt for that. And I hope we can never see that and things change, but I'm afraid.
¿Qué opinas sobre la interpretación que hacen los talibanes del Corán?
Okay, to tell you the truth is, I myself found freedom in the religion, because from the very first, they say that, okay, religion didn't allow women, for example, to get an education. And once I started to read, for example, Holy Quran, and to understand what is inside, I understood that God swear like to pen and asks everybody, men, women, to learn to read in a whole long verse. And it's just one of them, and there are a lot others where God asks everybody to learn. And then they are saying women are not capable of this, but capable of this. But in Holy Quran, there are a lot of women stories. Like, for example, the wife of Prophet Muhammad, she was a business woman. Like his daughter, who everybody, for example, mocked Prophet Muhammad because of not giving birth to a child who's a boy. But then, like, God, like, how can I say, God revealed a verse about his daughter, that she is the one who continued Prophet Muhammad's way. Or, for example, even before that, the story of Maria, I mean, the mother of Jesus, she's like an inspiration. Or one of Prophet Muhammad's wife was like a scholar. And then a lot of other stories in Holy Quran that the situation somehow was even better. Like, to us, for example, the start of Islam is where, like, the Prophet Muhammad stopped people from graving women alive, or putting alive women in graves, where he said that woman has the right to be like human. They are human, and they have the right. And a lot of other things that exist in Holy Quran or in the religion, but Taliban's interpretation is completely opposite of what really exists in the religion. It's like, for example, now there is this stereotype. If a lot of people think of Islam, of, I don't know, a religion that promote terrorism, but no, it's not. Those are terrorists who use religion as a weapon to justify their action. But if somebody really wants to understand that religion promotes terrorism or not, they should study the religion. They should really read it, and then judge it. But what Taliban does, like, has 0%. And I'm sure if you ask, for example, those members of Taliban that what is really in Holy Quran, and you ask about the verses meanings, they understand nothing. They're all those children who were taken by Taliban to the mountains and are brainwashed, and they think that's right. They think that's right, and we have to implement that in the society. But of course, I'm not talking about Taliban. To me, the founder of Taliban is America, because as you know, before Taliban's previous era, women had everything, like, that was their right. But after, because of the competition of these two superpower, I don't know, the Soviet Union and America, like, I don't know, found the jihadians to fight against the Soviet Union, which Taliban is one branch of them, who then started like fighting back the country. And then even this time, America was the one who brought them to us. Now, some people ask me, okay, isn't it enough? I mean, we as the West supported you a lot. Like, until what point we can support you? And until, like, we can give aid and things like that. I mean, I don't want them to support us. They just don't bring them to our country. Just leave us alone. Like, I mean, even during these 20 years of democratic government, our president was the one who was chosen by America, not the one that was chosen by people. And once their contract was finished, he left the country. And what was the point also of this all peace process negotiation, where they made Taliban to be known internationally? And I don't know, the media game that affected people psychologically and prepared the ground for the Taliban to come and to take over, and leaving all those heavy weaponry there. We just don't want these things. I mean, I'm not a political expert, but that's just my opinion. Maybe people think differently, but according to me, that's what it is.
¿Cómo es la educación de las niñas en Afganistán? ¿Existen escuelas clandestinas para ellas?
Well, in Afghanistan, there are like, two types of school and maybe more, but okay, let me tell you about two types. One are like tolerated schools. Those are schools that Taliban know about them, and they say that we are teaching only girls under the age of 12. And another way is like secret schools who are like teaching. How that works is like each teacher who's teaching teaches a group of girls in her own home in one of her rooms, usually like very early in the morning or very late in the afternoon, so that Taliban don't get to know, or in areas that there are not a lot of Taliban members.
¿Acuden a escuelas clandestinas las hijas de los talibanes mayores de 12 años?
Well, okay, that's very funny because not all of the schools Taliban are aware of. And also, Taliban members in Afghanistan are like different. Some of them are very extreme, especially Pakistani Talibans who are in Afghanistan, don't know Persian and they just speak Pashto. Some of them are a bit moderate. The ones who, I don't know, a bit are more educated or, I don't know, care about their own daughters and family. Maybe, yes, they know. You cannot like predict every member of Taliban. Maybe there are schools that Taliban know about, but also there are schools that Taliban don't know about. Even there are some members in Afghanistan that ask from the, I don't know, the bigger groups of Taliban or the leaders that it's better, to open the doors of schools for girls. And unfortunately, it's not happening.
¿Qué opinas sobre el turismo actual en Afganistán?
I don't think I have a problem with tourists going to Afghanistan because tourists, now find it safer, since before Taliban was the one who was, attacking tourists to not go to Afghanistan. So it's now safer because Talibans are the governors and they have to protect. And at least for two reasons. One, because money is going to Afghanistan. The other is they need to show the world that they're changed. And I think that's the reason they can go. For me, it's okay. Okay, at least maybe from one aspect, it's good for Taliban because tourists are taking money and somehow it's a reason to justify their change. But from another side, it's good also to people because there are a lot of tour guides, companies who are working, or for people, maybe Taliban see a lot of tourists, I don't know, change their mindset or get changed. And for a lot of people also to see, to see tourists, because I know people in Afghanistan love tourists, as our passport is the weakest passport in the world. We are not able to travel to foreign countries, but when they see people coming and they become like extremely happy. But also tourists don't forget our cultural and historical heritages. I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with those tourists who go to Afghanistan and when they come back, they lobby for Taliban. I have seen a lot of famous travelers who go to Afghanistan and come back and they call Taliban their brother. And they like reflect Afghanistan as if like nothing is going there, as if like nothing happened, as if like Taliban are the best leaders in the world, and they're just normalizing Taliban's and Taliban's rules there, and they are extremely happy with what they're doing to women and to people. I have a problem with that. Like, okay, you are a tourist, go to Afghanistan, enjoy the beauty, enjoy the, I don't know, the culture, but that doesn't mean that you make the situation even worse for those who are already stuck under those restrictions and rules.
Yeah, some people told us, why are you visiting Afghanistan? You shouldn't go to a place like this because it's ruled by the Taliban. You are giving money to them. But I think that if you isolate one country, it won't change. If you go
that's right.
And they know foreign people, local people know foreign people, maybe some change can start from that
place.
Yeah.
And also you can show that Afghanistan is not only the Taliban, you know, there are many,
Exactly.
many wonderful things that you can show to the rest of people.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I mean, also, like, I think tourists have a great effect on people's like mindset. They know more about the world. And then the fact that when tourists go there and come back, they talk about everything, the beauty, I don't know, the situation, and it's like a voice. And as you know, the freedom of expression is taken in Afghanistan, but they cannot take the freedom of expressions from tourists. Yeah, absolutely. I think I have, even if I was allowed to go to Afghanistan, I would have gone there as a tourist, but I can't.
¿Cuál crees que es la solución para Afganistán? ¿Hay esperanza?
Well, you know, I think I'm not the person to say what's the solution, because maybe it's beyond my knowledge, or I don't have that knowledge to say. But what I can say, as I said before, the only solution for, you know, the only problem in Afghanistan is the mindsets and, you know, the rules have been there. And I think change is the greatest solution in Afghanistan, and that change can happen through education. And that education, I don't know, that education has to take place in any way. I don't know if it's sacred, if it's tolerated, or if it's in any other way. And I think it also, it is somehow impossible without assistance from the international community and pressuring, I don't know, the governments or the Taliban to change. And I think that's right now, that's the only solution. But also hope is something that has to exist, because without hope, it means that women in Afghanistan, or I mean everybody else, has to do nothing and has to accept everything. That would be the end of Afghanistan.
El pasado 21 de agosto, Afganistán promulgó una ley para promover la virtud y prevenir el vicio, imponiendo normas muy restrictivas sobre la población, especialmente las mujeres. Debido a la inmensa represión que están sufriendo las afganas tras la llegada de los talibanes y el aumento de prohibiciones a las que están siendo sometidas, quisimos preguntar a Fátima hace apenas unos días por este tema.
Como notaréis, a partir de ahora, su tono de voz y estado de ánimo han cambiado mucho respecto a la conversación anterior. La esperanza de la que ella nos hablaba hace unas semanas se desvanece ante una situación extrema de violación de los derechos humanos más básicos. El relato de Fátima durante los próximos minutos es absolutamente desgarrador.
Unfortunately, this so-called Ministry of Propagation of Virtue and Prevention of Vice of Taliban has just introduced new rules that further restrict people, especially women. The most terrible ones are ones that ban women voices in public, even if it's speaking, reading, or singing. Singing, even they are not allowed at home. Women cannot look directly to other men other than their family members. They should cover their full body and face with thick and long clothing. The other thing is they should stay away from non-Muslims, even if they're women. So the list of rules go on, and it's getting more dangerous as new restrictions are coming out.
Tras estos últimos eventos, ¿has podido hablar con algunas mujeres que vivan en Afganistán? ¿Qué piensan? ¿Cómo se sienten?
So yes, I talked to my friend, and what they say is like, they're scared, scared of everything. When, they go out, they're scared to speak out loud, to show their faces, even though, Taliban are not there physically. And they say like the society as a whole now seems to be a very scary place. And they're experiencing like so much fear, frustration, and a sense of despair in response to these Taliban's new rules and regulations. I think the situation is not only physically oppressive, but also mentally, devastating. I think, even me being outside of Afghanistan, I feel like devastated. I feel like, it's frightening. Like, it's frightening, and they're, in a bad way, they're dehumanizing women from the society. And I don't know what they have to, what they have to do with why they're so much scared of women. But I feel like, I don't know, like, it's like something morally is very wrong, and something that, I don't know, it's like our dignity is, our dignity is taken from us, our identity is taken away from us, and I don't know, like, how to express that.
¿Crees que se puede hacer algo desde fuera de Afganistán para mejorar esta situación?
I think, as I told you, like, there's not much to do, because Taliban closely, monitor activities like, movements, and they impose really hard and, scary punishments. But again, like, women, have been defying these rules, simply by not, doing so, or just, recording themselves, explaining the situation, singing, reciting poetry, and posting them on social media, whether with, their face being shown or covered because of the fears. But, they're trying to do their best. But, I think since Taliban restricted everything, there is not much to do on the other side, I mean, in Afghanistan. So I definitely, think we, as ones who are here, have, as human beings, we have a responsibility to carry on, and that responsibility is to fight against this regime in any way, even if it's just, raising your voice, talking against them, strengthening Afghan women who are staying there by any means, helping them economically, helping them through, I don't know, education, scholarships, I don't know, it's just, being the voice of, those resilient women who are in Afghanistan and trying to keep their hope alive and trying to go forward and change things, even though things seem to be very dark, very scary, and very, hopeless. So as my part, as your part, or anyone who see this video, I think we can be a great of help, just by raising awareness, just by talking about them, but by not letting, the international community to forget. So thank you, everyone, and have a great time.
زدی تا امر ثانی مهر خاموشی دهانم را، مهیا می کنی تا امر ثانی آب و نانم را. مرا با جرم زن بودن اسیر خانه ام کردی، چه کس باید